All set? Today is Monday, June the 13th, 2011. This is the start of an interview with Mr. Marvin Altenburg at the RSVP offices of Catholic Services in Macomb, located at 26238 Ryan Road, Warren, Michigan. Mr. Altenburg is 87 years old. His birth date is August the 8th, 1923. Mr. Altenburg currently resides at 23218 Scotch Pine Lane, Macomb, Michigan. My name is Dave Brousseau, and I will be the interviewer. And Gary will be the videographer. Mr. Altenburg, would you state for the record the branch of service that you served in?
I was in the Army, in the Signal Corps area.
All right, let's go back. I see you were born in Detroit.
Yes,
Did you attend the Detroit school system?
yes, I attended the 8th grade at the St. Thomas Lutheran School in Detroit.
And then when did you go to high school? Where?
Went to high school. My father was shot and killed in a shoe store holdup, and I was 8 years old. I went from grade school to high school at Henry Ford Trade School in Dearborn.
Were you drafted, or did you enlist?
No, little history. I worked for Michigan Bell Telephone for about a year and a half, and many of my friends were going in the service, and my mother being a widow, I was undecided whether to go. The telephone company, Michigan Bell, were interviewing for the service for Signal Corps people. So and they were given equivalent rank to what their experience was. I had a year and a half service, so I went and had an interview. Then they said, well, with your experience of a year and a half, you'd get a corporal rating, T5 rating. So I thought, well, this is better than being drafted or whatever. So I went to the draft board to get my release for the enlistment. The clerk there could not find my papers. She looked for about an hour, and I'm figuring, man, if she can't find them, maybe I'm free. But
No such luck.
no such luck. She found them in the back of a file drawer that it had fallen behind, and so I got the papers. So from there on, I was told to report to the service and had the physical and all that stuff. Went to, I was in the service December 11th, 1942.
What was your view of the war going on at the time? Were you aware of what was happening, or?
I was fairly young. I had a wonderful girlfriend. My mother. The war was there, and but really
Not really for you.
not something I was running to get into, but all my friends were going in, and I didn't feel the idea of staying home, and they all were going, so I joined up.
What'd your mom think about that?
She was working at Ernest Kearns in the alteration department. we had just built a home, and she was a wonderful woman to take on all these things on her own. But she went along with my going in.
How big a family did you have?
I had some brothers and sisters. I believe there was something like 6. They were all half brothers and sisters. My dad, first 2 wives died, and my mother was the 3rd marriage. So I had some half brothers.
Quite a menagerie of
Combination.
kinfolk, huh?
Combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Were you the only one that was in the service at the time?
yes.
Mhm.
No. My brother Martin was in the Air Force.
Mhm.
He was the gunner and radio operator.
So your mom could proudly display 2 stars.
Actually, yes. Yeah, I have one here somewhere that was in the window.
Mhm. That was neat. I remember that very vividly.
Yes, yeah.
And people put them out there very proudly.
They were up and down the block.
Yeah, yeah.
And the church had names and flags and so forth, yes. So, anyhow,
Where did you, what was your assignment in boot? Where did you go for that?
well, being more or less in the service December 11th, but they fortunately said you don't have to report till after Christmas.
Mhm.
But I did go to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and that was between Christmas and New Year's. So at New Year's, after the physicals in Fort Sheridan, Illinois, there was a party at the USO or the camp, and 3 of us walked over and tried to learn how to march and all that stuff. And, but it was no fun, so we came back home, and we were in the barracks at 12 o'clock on New Year's, and you heard the whimpering going on.
Wow.
You were, first time you were really know that you were away and from family.
Mhm. What was your training like at boot?
Went from Fort Sheridan, Illinois to Camp McCain, Mississippi in Grenada. It's about 100 miles south of Memphis, Tennessee. It was a new camp, mud, tar paper shack, or barracks. And my first assignment was 2 other guys from New York telephone to build duck walks over the mud. We became wonderful friends, as many of the Army friends. And but the camp was brand new, and some people were there already from a cadre from some of the Signal Corps camps.
Was the boot pretty typical? A lot of regiment, a lot of discipline, a lot of marching?
Yeah, we had a lot of the goings on of retreat organizations, marching and getting set up, and reveille in the morning and very early.
6 a.m.?
Yeah, 6 a.m. and get up and get out on the street in order. And
See, the word was the grinder. Remember that word?
no.
Get out on the grinder to start marching.
Oh, well, we had a number of 25-mile marches and singing while you march. Oh, it's not.
That was
that
supposed to
bad.
make it pleasant, right?
Oh, yeah. Very pleasant, but most of the time in Mississippi was very warm.
I was just going to ask you, what time of year was it that you were there?
Well, it was January,
Still warm.
yeah, and
You missed the worst part, which is summer.
Well, we went from Camp McCain, Mississippi, and we went to maneuvers in Lebanon, Tennessee.
Oh, that's not much better.
It was better.
Really?
We were taken there on the trucks and so forth, and we were supposed to put up our pup tents, and the surface was rock. So we are banging tent pegs in the rock and finally you get a spot where you could put the thing up. Then the officer came by and said, "You're not in line." We said, "You're lucky," a few words, but you're lucky that they were even got it in. Straighten it out. So take it apart, try to get it in line. So, but anyhow, it was.
So what was your activity in Tennessee now?
We were on maneuvers and supplying. I was in the 69th Signal Battalion. It was 1,000 men, and many of them were from Bell companies in New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois. And so we supplied communications to all the outfits that were on maneuvers there. It was a training period of supplying radio, message center, putting up poles. Of course, being in the States, they were already pretty well set on that.
Mm-hmm.
Overseas, we set poles and rebuilt the local communication area. Oh, my loving granddaughter made it. So, anyhow, we had these duties to perform, and plus we had the I was in battalion headquarters. There was a more or less a draftsman, which meant I did everything. I did mostly plans and training. I have a training thing we worked out. One of the things that really stymied me was that I was at the local show in camp, and I was called out by the major to come to battalion headquarters. Came there and he said, "We need a scaled map of the camp. It's never been drawn for this area." Well,
wow.
Scaled map of the camp. Me, 19 years old.
What a job.
And you better get it done in a week. So I started, and I could go with a Jeep with a driver, and we went around the roads that were there and made some notes where they were and on the map. Got it done, and that was the first map of Camp McCain with where roads, where fire towers were, and to scale in a week. And
how big was the finished product?
oh, well,
Wow.
I don't know if it's here or not, but it was on vellum and reproduced for the whole camp, because the divisions that were there training got that.
What was it like coming into the service with a rank already? Did that give you any trouble with your buddies?
Not really.
No?
No. We had 132 came from Michigan Bell and other places, other Bell companies. Most of the other people were from, well, one fella was a high school principal and he was a private. we know one that should be a private. Anyhow, it was a mix of, that didn't seem to bother.
Everybody, where did you go from Tennessee now?
Then we went back to McCain in Mississippi.
What kind of training was there?
Well, we went on bivouacs out in the field where you went out and did your communication work, and our battalion headquarters group, which everybody laughed at because they weren't the specimen of working out in the field usually. We were set up with the lieutenant from battalion headquarters. We were called Drake's Raiders. We snuck up on all the companies, and they had all their guards set up and so forth. We set up and we would bam them with a paint gun, and they were dead. So we were called Drake's Raiders, and it's amazing how you can sneak up on people, but this was in Mississippi and at night, and you're crawling along the dirt and fields.
What was communications like back then as opposed to now? How did they communicate?
Well, we had radio communication, message center, where you could send some messages, but we had a lot of jeeps with people in them would deliver messages to the various battalions and
Kind of like runners?
runners.
Yeah.
And more or less.
Was the radio pretty good?
Radio wasn't bad, but not great. And teletype.
Teletype. So the Morse code?
Three things were your main. Plus you tried to get in on the local communication if it was within reason to where you wanted to get to.
But that wasn't wireless then, so you needed some kind of power and lines.
Yes, you had to have power units, trucks with power on them, and teletype, all these
Cable lines?
A spiral 4, which was like four wire communication. You ran a lot of that. So it was basically, compared to now, it's pretty primitive.
Yeah. So how long were you back there now in Mississippi?
We were there till we left to go overseas to England.
What'd you think about that when you got your assignment to go to England?
Well, in the meantime, I had never were going to get married to my engaged wonderful lady, but we were married, so it wasn't pleasant.
I'm sure.
She was there for 4 months at a one-room place with not too great, but she was happy we were happy to be there.
Yeah.
I made a few passes that were not legit to get over the railroad track to come in and see her, but anyhow, it was a separation, and I guess...
Did she stay there, or did she go back home when you left?
She got on a train to come back to Detroit, and we were put on a troop train with the shades drawn. And that was one of her memories, that she was pulling out to go back to Detroit and leave me. And she cried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't it didn't dawn on us that we were going into the next phase of what we had trained for.
Yeah.
But we soon found out.
What time period are we talking now? You go to England, but what time is this getting ready for the invasion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you aware that was coming, or?
Yeah. We left to go overseas January of 44, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the train took us to New York, and we got ready there, and
How'd you go over there, boat?
to England.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're one of the chosen few then. Most of them went by those big flat bottom boats and ended up getting sick and.
Well, this was it was a new Kaiser built ship that came from California where they were building them around to New York. And we were the first troops on there.
Oh, you did go by ship then? Okay.
Empire Rapier. It was a British ship then. And we got on there with all our equipment, barracks, up a ramp, and we got on, and we started out, and we thought, geez, we're getting close to England. It must be. It was 4 or 5 days we were on the thing. We were up in Iceland. Instead of going across due to the sub activity, we went up the coast, and I got, being my techniques of what I was doing in the service, I got to be in the captain on the ship, not the boat captain, but the captain of the troops. And I was up in his area, which was way up in the ship, and looking outside, and Cripes, this is all ice. Where are we? This isn't England.
It's a shorter distance when you get up that far to go across the ocean, with this less exposure to the sub warfare.
Sub warfare.
Conditions are not that good for the sub, so.
No, and we had 2 escorts, 2 British corvettes,
Mm-hmm.
and watching them. This is the worst time to go over. We had everybody was sick. I was fortunate to be up in the troop captain's area, and the British sailors were shaking their heads because the bolts and nuts were falling off. And we said, geez, if these guys are used to going on the water and they're shaking their head, it don't look so good.
And these ships up in the pilot house,
Mm-hmm.
there's a protractor that sits up there with the needle pointing down and the rest of it, and you can watch that. And when the rolls get to be 30 to 35, you're close to taking water down the stack.
Yeah.
So you can just start saying your prayers. And I remember watching those.
You'd go.
Always go up and look at the protractor and see how bad your rolls were.
Well, one night we were told to get settled in and hold on because it was too bad, too rough. So they were going to turn around. Well, turning around, you're in the bad part. So one of my buddies and I, we wanted to get a little air. We opened the hatch and went out a little bit. Damn near got blown over into the water. It was so bad.
So how long did it take you to get over there?
It was, how many days? It was about 13 days. So we were 4 or 5 off, and and then we landed in Scotland. And then we got on a train and went down to England, Marlborough, England.
England.
We were there training and doing various training things.
Was there a lot of anticipation for that invasion day?
Yes, we were getting ready for that, and
There were a lot of false starts too. They had days set up and it would rain or some other weather-related things would defer it. And that had been terribly difficult to.
well, after a number of months, there wasn't much more to do.
Yeah.
You were there and you were waiting to go. So, of course, we still had to get up in the morning at an ungodly hour and run about half mile or more down the road. Well, you know, when you get up in the early morning, you're supposed to go and pee first before you run half an hour. Well, we didn't do that, so we learned to have control of the kidney department.
Mm.
Anyhow, one of the funny things, if I wrote down so many things, but this is good. We had a volleyball net, so we get out and play volleyball, and we're up on a hill like with our camp, and the invasion came. We knew that was the day it was going to be. Well, one of our lieutenants hurt himself playing volleyball. He went to the hospital. The guys are coming from D-Day to the hospital that were wounded and stuff. He's there being treated for playing volleyball.
Gosh.
He was a sort of a quiet guy, and I didn't want to tell him I got hurt playing volleyball. So, anyhow.
So you weren't involved in the D-Day invasion troop?
Not till it was about 30 days or 3 weeks to 4 weeks before we went over. And
What was it like hitting the beach then after you'd already been there for almost a month?
well, it was a month later that we actually went over to it, and we went over on a ship, a small little thing, and then we got on a landing craft. So we had the fun of jumping off in the water and coming in, and there were planes, enemy planes still going over.
Oh, really?
At that time, but not that many that, but we got in and set up, and we kept getting strafed and so forth, and we were digging foxholes, so each plane that came over and would strafe, we'd dig a little deeper. One of my favorites, I was on guard duty one night, and it was a moonlight night, and we were in the hedgerows that they talk about. So I'm guard duty, and I'm seeing something moving, and we were supposed to have a password, you know, to whatever they call it. And I wasn't getting any response from this. So I was getting ready to shoot this, whatever. It was a cow moving in the field in the moonlight, and he was moving. He was about to get plastered. But the other thing was sleeping one night there, and geez, about 1, 2 o'clock, And man, everybody gets up and, I mean, get ready, what's going on? One of the guys had hung his raincoat up on a tree, and it was a moonlight night again, and it was swaying, you know. Well, he woke up and he was a little happy with his gun too, I guess, but that thing got riddled.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of stories like that. People get edgy and
It was, people didn't know where they were, what they were doing.
first time in battle, scared.
Right, you were, where are we? What are we doing, you know? And,
What am I doing here?
why am I here? And, but St. Lo, we were there, and we were about to be cut off by the Germans. But this is one time the French really did a job. The French Armored Division came around and took care of us being cut off, the Americans, and then we were able to start moving on into France. And so that,
How long did it take you to get to France?
well, that was just from England, Southampton, England, to France. I think it was only like a couple of days.
Uh-huh.
And then by the time we got set up and know what we were doing or what we're supposed to be doing, and then we started to advance. And,
So you were behind yet all the original D-Day invasion force.
we were 3-4 weeks behind the original.
But there was still probably a lot of pockets of German resistance.
A lot of pockets, and the paratroopers, you could see remnants of their activities and their parachutes. And we'd seen the guy that was, not the guy, but the steeple where the guy got hung up on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were about 3 weeks, 4 weeks later coming through there. And then started to move to France about in July.
Mhm.
And from there on, we kept going through France, and till we went through Metz. We actually, with Patton.
Oh, you were with
Patton.
General Patton, eh?
That we were with the Third Army, and then there was the 20th Corps, and the 69th Signal was attached to the 20th Corps. And we provided communication between the Corps and Division. In other words, you had Third Army, 20th Corps, 69th Signal, and then the actually infantry companies and so forth. So,
Did you ever get a chance to meet Patton?
yes, twice.
Mm-hmm.
Once we were in a place where they had horses, stable.
Yeah, it was quite a,
And we had everything blacked out, and you couldn't see anything. So all of a sudden, here's Patton, and he wants to see the horses. And so talked to him a little bit that time. Picture just like he is, you know, man, there's guns. And the other time we were in France, and we were being too polite on the roads. The French would ride bicycles on the road, and our trucks and tanks would make room for them, or stop and do things. Well, excuse me. Patton, he's up on a truck like and talking to everybody. He says, you run a few of those sons of bitches down and they'll get the word around. So,
perfect example. That's patent in and out, boys.
That was something you never forgot. And those were, no, the other time was at the concentration camp with some of the pictures we have. This is a true thing. We have the pictures, and we happen to be the troops at this camp that were there, the first ones to be there. And these Jewish people were in the pits, just dead, laying there. We walked through the gas routines where they gassed them, and all the various things that were done to them. And so Patton came down. They had called him because they wanted them to make sure they seen it, that it was a fact, not something blown up. So our general, 20th Corps General Walker, we had Patton, and he actually had Eisenhower. He was down there, and we were, well, one of the pictures I'm on, but I don't have it, but John Taylor, who worked, we were always together in the signal section. He's on one of the pictures, so we were there. And so a lot of the things today where there's doubt of this, there's no doubt.
You know, it's amazing. I had heard that Eisenhower made it a big deal to take a lot of pictures. And the word was he was planning one day to take those pictures so that it would prove.
Right.
Amazing he'd have the insight to do that. Because that was years after where all these doubts started to arise. And
yeah. With my other daughter, Allison's mother, we all went to the Jewish Holocaust Museum, or whatever, and we had quite a deal with that, and they had a lot of the high school students there, and I made it a point to say this was no just a wild theory that this went on. So anyhow,
well, from France, then where did you go?
well, we went through a real tough area, Metz,
Okay.
and we had fought pretty hard to get through there. Then we were running short of gas. Well, like gas was going to Montgomery, north, the British.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
You sound like Patton.
well, he used a few other words that right there too. Anyhow, we had to pull back from Metz, and we stayed there bogged down for about 2 months, or 2 to 3 months, before we could go back through Metz, and before we got enough gas for tanks and everything. At that place, we got a chance to have better food. I went up to 182 from about 168, and became acquainted with a family. We took over a school, and that's where we worked and slept and so forth. But there was a family right outside the school there that we became acquainted with, and this little young little girl, we gave her some candy and stuff, and talked to the mother, and she did some washing for us, and which we never had clothes washed or.
Yeah, I can imagine for weeks on end, and all of a sudden to get someone to be able to wash.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we corresponded after the war. She being French and German, my mother, we correspond, and you often wonder what happened to this little girl now,
Mhm.
Beatrice. So, from there on, talking about the Ghost Corps, Pat, he was hell-bent. You go, so about if you stayed 2 nights in one place, you were in mud and cold, and we were about 35 miles south of the Battle of the Bulge. They gave me a bazooka. I had never held a bazooka, but there was nothing to hold back the Germans from up at Bastogne all the way down except us, and troops like us. And so we learned to shoot the bazooka, and we had a 35th Cavalry unit spread out in front of us for miles. And fortunately, everything not fortunately, but they took place at Bastogne instead of them coming around. And, but that was cold, snow, and freezer, and going in a pup tent. If you had a chance to put a pup tent up, but anyhow, it wasn't pleasant. But what I had to do was keep track of all the communication that we would set up, but in a day or two we'd move. Well, what you did here probably wouldn't do a heck of a lot of good up there, so you had to keep doing. And so it was, and I guess some of the times I was the closest to be killed would be by strafing. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of, when we were moving up, German planes would come over, and you'd get off a truck and fly into a ditch and try to keep safe that way. Another time, Captain and I was with a captain who was the plans and operations officer, myself and 1 or 2 other guys sometimes. So we, that was Ed who I worked with. But this one time we were being strafed, and the captain, who was a very stout fellow, fat, we were crowding around like a cistern that had some protection, and he and I are crawling around trying to keep away from the bullets coming down through from the plane, and I'm moving him, move over, I gotta have some cover too, so anyhow, that was a number of our people got killed in various places from that. The other item that my raincoat is a illustration of it is the Germans had a 280-pound railroad gun, mammoth gun on a railroad car. And they'd fire that thing, and it would go, I gather, 35 miles or something. And it would explode up in the air, I don't know, 35, 40 feet. But the shrapnel from this would go quite a distance. So our group was sitting, stopped, and it was up in a dance hall, and we were staying up there on the second floor. And that's where I had the raincoat hanging on a hook up above me where I was sleeping. And the shrapnel kept come flying through there when I was right there. All of us that were in that area went down in a wine cellar or something immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the place to, but the railroad gun kept moving back in the tunnel. So the Air Force couldn't find it. Finally they said, oh, we got it. We shut the opening. The next day, boom.
Back in it.
Back right at it, and they didn't get it. I don't know if you want to take a picture now or later, but the shrapnel tore through the raincoat, and you can see where the shrapnel.
We'll take a picture when we're done.
Later, okay.
We can pull the camera off the stand.
Yeah, okay.
So where are you now? You're obviously past France. We're
Yeah, we
headed to Germany, I expect.
in Germany, and Germany was 14th of March that we went to Germany, Saarburg, St. Wendel, Mannheim, Wiesbaden. Wiesbaden, I got a bath, one of the famous.
When did you do these notes?
While we were moving,
We've had a number of folks like yourself that have kept notes as they went along.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And this is all the dates and things that where we moved and how often.
So we got a copy of that on the copier before you leave.
Okay. But we went into Germany, and one thing we were told, for booby traps, things you took for granted, don't. I went in one house, and there was a piano. I was tempted to plunk on the piano, but then I thought that'd be a good spot for a booby trap.
Yeah.
So many of the things you had to be careful for. And so, but from there on, it was dead horses, dead Germans. It was war. And so, trying to keep the communication. And another time that railroad gun knocked our whole communication area trailer out. I walked, I was in charge that night, and so I to get the captain in tune with getting everything back in order, I started it, but he's supposed to do something too. He had been in the house sleeping about half a mile away. So I walked that half mile, woke him up, and he finally came back to also get him, but in the meantime I'm doing all this stuff. He got the Purple Heart, I did
Hmm.
More of the officers gave each other the awards, you know, to get the Purple Heart. I mean, I didn't get wounded, neither did he.
Couldn't you have bumped into a nail on the wall or something that would have, hey, shrapnel.
Yeah, I guess. But that always amused me,
Yeah.
how some of these things worked out. And so many things you were involved with that he got sent home eventually. He was from Ohio, Bill, not Michigan.
So how far did you get into Germany?
Well, we got all the way into Germany. Weimar was one of them, Gotha, the Pommersfelden, it was, and the one that I really remember was beautiful churches, Regensburg. And actually, a guy played the organ there, and we went to the church there and heard the organ. But a lot of the places were bombed out and everything, but beautiful. So we were in Germany until around May of '45. Then we went into Austria.
What was the reason for going to Austria?
The Germans were still there.
Okay.
We met up with the Russians in that area. They drank a lot.
So how was Austria?
Well, my big memory was I got my clothes washed another time. A young girl was and her mother were by the stream, and talked to her. You wash some clothes? Okay, so she would take clothes and wash them by the stream, and with a rock go over it, and nice people, and but we met up with the Russians and had a few little drinks and singing, and but then we came back, and I went to we went after the war ended. We went back to Tutzing, Germany, and it's about 50, 170 miles below Munich, Germany. We were at a place, a nice, beautiful home, looked over a lake, and a big veranda. All of the signal section of 20th Corps officers and men sat out on just relaxing. We set up a badminton net, played badminton on the lawn, and went up on the highest mountain in Germany and skied down the thing. But going up there, you took a cable car, and the Germans had a radio set station up on this high mountain. Well, we're riding in this cable car, a couple of us guys, and we're thinking, how safe is this sucker? But we had some time there from June of '45. I was transferred. Then they started to send guys home with points. and I think I had 75 or points or whatever. So I wasn't the first to go home, but they gave you points for this was for this is for 3 years in service. This was 2 years overseas, 6 months for each one, and so these are for various things.
Most of these are occupation ribbons.
Or where you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Germany.
And you had to spend so much time in order to qualify for them.
Right.
Yeah,
And good conduct.
yeah. And that's kind of just stay out of trouble, not do anything so great.
No, no, right. But then I was more or less starting to go home. They transferred me from 20th Corps to the Supreme Headquarters, Eisenhower's area in Frankfurt. And
Did you meet him?
I didn't meet him, but you could see him. He'd come in his car, and I'd be out there. You could see him walk in, whatever. We were at the I.G. Farben building, which is a nice office building, and I was transferred to the signal section there. And I thought, what the heck am I doing? Coming from a year and a half at Bell and coming up through 69th Signal Battalion to 20th Corps, got promoted to it's more or less staff sergeant, but technician 3rd grade. And here I am in the signal section of Supreme Headquarters, and I'm asking him, what do you expect me to do here? Well, they gave me a few jobs, but
So that was in essence you're going home.
my
Is
way
getting off of the front line and.
front line and getting assigned on your way back.
Mhm.
So I was there in Frankfurt until October 1945, and they sent a group of us with enough points to Paris, France. And we got to Paris. There's about, I don't know, 20 of us took on the train and so forth. So we were billeted or put up in a Petit Palais. It's right downtown France, and so you gotta behave yourself in France, you know. Anyhow,
Where were you and what were you doing when you heard the war was officially over in Germany?
we were in Austria or over right in that area.
Did you believe what you heard?
Not really.
Yeah.
We heard Truman who took over, and Roosevelt, he died
Oh, that's right.
in
Yeah.
the area, and
Now that was before the official end of the war. What did the troops think when you lost your favorite leader? Did that bother you any?
Well, I guess we just went along with it.
Yeah.
He had met with all the leaders and dictated the strategies,
Yeah.
and went along with it. But
Did you guys ever hear Truman? Was that a surprise?
yeah, who
Yeah, who the heck is
who's
he?
he and what's he gonna do? And,
Yeah.
so forth. But anyhow, I was in Frankfurt for the 2 months, and that was interesting. then took a railroad car, which would go about 10, 15, 20 miles an hour because the tracks weren't good, you know, after the war. And we'd stop at some city or a little town, and people from town would offer you sandwiches or something.
Oh, nice.
Or they'd want money too, but that was nice. And I slept up in the, not slept, but overnight I went up on the baggage rack because you could lay down up there. And
Did you find that people were any different before and after the war?
well, France, to me, they sang to us, you know, they were so happy, but when the Germans were there, they treated them the same way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
They were, but we had, when they did some of our laundry and stuff, they'd offer us some Calvados. And so when on the ride back to your outfit, you'd be singing, and the Jeep driver, he and I would be hoping that the road stayed straight. But they were, after the war, when you were coming home, or toward that way, the Germans were already rebuilding. They were doing a good job. France it was still the way it was.
Shambles, eh?
Bombed out and whatnot, or just needing repair. Germans were more bombed out, and they were rebuilding, and they were having France was having the Germans come in to do the rebuilding.
Was there ever a threat that you heard that some of the troops would be shipped over to the Pacific Theater?
Yes, that was our, before all this, when the war ended, we were ready to be shipped over to Japan.
Yeah,
Which, that was not the best item. I mean, Germany was bad, but some of the war areas in
at that time it was going island hopping and it was
Yeah.
not pretty.
not pretty, you know. And where would you go? How would you get the whole battalion or corps, which I was in then, 20th Corps? Ship all these people over there, and what would you do? So but that was a real. Everybody was so happy the war is over, and then they were pushing this pretty good.
Well, fortunately it didn't take that long to
No.
end it.
And as far as the atom bomb or the bombing, for what it did for the American troops in America, U.S., it wasn't a pleasant thing,
No.
but I have no problem with what they did.
Well, up until the time that the final decision was finally made for the dropping of the bombs, there was full planning for an invasion, and the estimates of the losses were terribly high,
Yes.
which probably tipped the
Well,
decision in favor of the bombs, and that's probably why they wanted more troops from the
yeah.
European theater to go over to get ready, because
Yeah. It
funny how history changes things and works out.
yeah. I would never buy a Honda.
Have you
I-
notified your family yet that you're on the way home?
Yes, I have letters to the wife. And
Was your mom still alive at that time?
Yes.
I imagine she was happy to hear that.
Yes, yeah. And on my way home, one of the things my wife was ticked off at me was that I went in Paris to Camp Philip Morris and took the boat home, and happy to see the Statue of Liberty. And I went to Camp Atterbury, Indiana it was a train from New York to Camp Indiana, and I was in an upper bunk, and boy, it was pleasant to look and see lights, because we were in blackout for so long, no lights. And Camp Atterbury, 2 days or 3 there to go to the Army, asking if I want dental work done. No, I want to go home, because that meant staying another day. And GI insurance, everything you had to make a decision on. And then we were, okay, you're going home tomorrow. Nobody told you how you're going to get from Indiana, Camp Atterbury, to Detroit. So a group of us got together and hired a bus. Anybody on the route from Indiana to Detroit. So along the way, the bus left, I don't know, 11 o'clock or so at night. So we would drop guys off all along the way, and Detroit was the last. I got dropped off at 3:30 in the morning in the middle of Detroit with a barracks bag and anything I owned, and took a streetcar out to my home with my mother. My wife said, "Why didn't you come to me on the west side?" I kept saying, I didn't even know if there was a bus running at 3:30 or anything would get me there. The next night I went over to, but anyhow, she always brought that up to me. And I went to my mother instead of this shame. Yeah, anyhow, so, but seeing the Statue of Liberty, and then you went to this camp where they took care of getting you out of no, you did that in Indiana. You could have anything you wanted to eat, and in New York there, anything and as much as you wanted. So then it went from there to coming home, and I got home exactly 3 years, December 11th to December 11th. I didn't go back to work at the telephone company. Maybe a mistake. If I went back, I would have got my vacation pay for 1945. But that didn't, I just wanted to be on my own, and I got a new wife back, that we weren't really together.
So where did you go to work?
To Bell. At the Oakman building in Highland Park. I was in the plant engineering, designing outside plant cables, poles, conduit, and worked there for 42 years, and retired beginning of '84. So I'm 87, and my wife passed away 3.5 years ago.
Did she ever forgive you?
No. No, that was
Well,
probably,
she stayed with you, so I guess that's a bonus.
yeah, it didn't affect that at least.
No, yeah.
But,
What did it feel like? It must have been terribly lonely to be dropped off in Detroit. Not just 3 o'clock in the morning, but the fanfare that would have been nice to, you know, people waving flags and cheering and,
well, how often do they show that, you know?
yeah.
And this fella getting left off in the city, and nobody there, and that reminds me
That
of
would have, matter of fact, there was a commercial that,
that,
did you see that one of the guy in the army?
right,
That was kind of neat.
yeah, and that's,
You just didn't have the last part of it.
yeah. It was very odd and, you know, nobody there. The reason I took a streetcar, because I knew that,
Yeah.
and it was running, but,
But when you got on the streetcar,
nobody,
where did you go? I mean, I'd get on the streetcar and where am I gonna go?
no, I was going to my mother's. I was
Oh.
going out Gratiot.
Okay, so you knew where you were headed,
I
at least
knew
take it as far as it would go.
that it
What
was,
did it go to, 8 Mile, as I remember?
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 8 Mile when it
8
turned
Mile,
around.
right. And we lived at 7 Mile, so.
Oh, okay.
So it was, I don't even remember if there's anybody other than the motorman and the conductor on the street.
So how far were you from your mom's house?
Just a long block.
Yeah,
And
was she expecting you or
not
no?
really. But,
Imagine she was pretty glad to see you.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So she, you know, having been a widow for all those years.
Yeah.
And, I'm really her only son.
Were any of the other kids still home yet?
No.
No. So she was alone.
Mhm. Yeah. It was an income bungalow, and the woman upstairs, her husband was also in the same outfit, worked for Bell. So they had something in common a little
Yeah.
bit. But it was an adjustment, getting back into civilian life and working in engineering, and we wondered where are we gonna stay? And a couple offered their house in Highland Park for 4 months while they went to Florida. So we stayed in this big home, wife and I, for 4 months. We could have any of the stuff in the fruit cellar or whatever, and just no rent, no nothing, just pay the utility, I think we did, utilities. And
What was it like when you came into the New York Harbor and you passed the Statue of Liberty? Were there people greeting the boats that were coming in?
no, we may have heard some boat, but I don't remember that. All I remember is that everybody was up on deck, and that was when we left the harbor. That was sad.
Yeah,
When we were going overseas, but here, coming back, it was a great feeling. So.
Did you have a chance to use any of the benefits of the GI Bill?
No, the wife, I was I had graduated from high school and I was in an apprentice school at Ford's. And I left there during Ford's strike in 45, whatever, when I graduated. And so I was off while Fords were on that big initial strike. I met my friend upstairs at my mother's, at our house, who worked for Bell, told me, why don't you go to the telephone company, they're hiring. So I went and interviewed, and they offered to hire me.
Mhm.
I talked to the wife, and we decided that might be good to go to. So I left Ford's and went to the telephone company. And 42 years there, so it worked out well. And they, my raises were, kept going while I was in the service for 3 years. So I started at $16 a week. 2 weeks later, it was raised to 18. And when I came home, I was making $36. And in 2 weeks, I got another raise. I was really living the high life. But, and we had 4 children and a bunch of nice-looking grandchildren and great grandkids.
You got some of those too, eh?
Got some of those. Yeah, they're coming along. Father's Day, we're getting together at my house.
Oh, great.
In a condo. Wife took her, how long to get me to move from Harper Woods, where we were for 42 years, to move to a condo. And that was
Is there gonna be enough room in the condo?
well, hopefully it isn't raining.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, everybody gets along and
That's
it's
great. Well, you brought a lot of paraphernalia. Let's start looking at some of it. Of course, your backdrop is Germany, where you were
Yeah, right.
actually, for the record, you were discharged in December of 45. Was it January before you got home, or was it quicker than that?
No, I got home before Christmas.
Okay. And then your first was born
September.
my math right?
September of 46.
Wow. Wow.
We,
Your young.
do you want me to
no, your
continue
youngest
with?
was
I came over to my
goodness.
my wife's parents' house, and she had a sister. I bumped her out of the bed and assumed the position of husband.
Rapidly.
Went on from there.
Oh, goodness. You must have been premature.
No, can I just interrupt a second? You got married to your wife just before you went overseas? A few months before you went overseas?
September.
Okay.
And I went overseas in January.
Okay, so you were able to live together
We lived
for a
together
few months.
for
Okay.
4 months.
I know that there were some couples who kind of got married and went to the train station and sort
Yeah.
of thing, but not you. You were at least married for a few months. Okay.
And it was very fortunate, that we, I mean, if we had had a child, that I worked with some guys that had children and were overseas, and that just boiled them up.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
couldn't see them.
Anxiety, yeah, sure.
Couldn't do anything, or if they're sick. One guy, he actually had to go home. He went nuts.
No kidding. You have some pictures that you brought along. Up in the right left-hand corner, what camp was this? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember
Could you
whether it
tilt it
was
forward a little bit?
Buchenwald or
Forward. No, tilt it forward because of the glare. Tilt it from the top down. There, that's good.
I have forgotten
Okay.
which one it is, but it is pictures that we took while we were there, and all the high-ranking officers.
Oh man, this is really
Very graphic.
a bit gross.
Were there to view
Some
it.
more, and then this one is. And this was the bride in happier times.
That was a German officer, I think.
Oh,
That wasn't,
no. Who
That
was this?
That was a German officer. I absconded from one of the houses.
Oh, I see. I assumed that was you and your wife, but
No, I didn't join the
this is the
German-
enemy.
This is the enemy.
Wow.
He was ticked at you too.
Excuse me?
He was ticked at you too, the enemy.
That's my army discharge.
Army discharge. And more pictures of slave workers shot to death. Dead German at a fort in Metz. My goodness. These were the workers shot, and a dead soldier in another bombed out area. Some pictures of locations in Germany. Weisenbaden. This is Lajany. What was this, the
Oh,
board
that was the boat
that you went over?
we came back
Oh,
on,
the one you came back on?
I guess.
And is this the typical kind of a publication that came out every so often?
No, that was the Third Army location. Yeah.
Guess who? God himself.
George, yes.
George.
George.
Some nice
And his
colored
Typical
underwear.
humble pose.
It's like the movie.
Yeah. So they're just various pictorial type pictures of, whoops.
That was
Is
just,
this the stuff you saw on the slopes?
Oh yeah.
it's mostly a Third Army book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that must have been a snowbathing beauty.
Not really.
Would this be Germany or Austria?
This is more just the Third Army, Lovers Patton's, their headquarters.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess you want to take that off and move it around. Why don't you walk him through some of this stuff?
It's a nice GI undershirt and with shorts that matched, and it's a beautiful attire for whatever you wanted. A shirt,
And,
a belt with a buckle you're supposed to keep polished. And
typical shirt, I guess.
a Nazi flag, which
And where did you abscond from this, sir?
can't tell. It was on a post office,
Oh, really?
yeah. And
Hmm.
another item, one of the houses we took over, you weren't supposed to abscond with anything. But there were beautiful electric trains in his
Oh, my.
attic. He was a doctor.
And here's the shrapnel riddled, oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is the one that was hanging on the post next to where I was, and this is where the shrapnel.
Imagine what you would have looked like if you'd had that on.
Yeah, it was hanging right here,
Yeah,
and there were windows. So yeah,
not a very comfortable looking.
it came rather
Raincoat.
close, and you can see where and what. And, so anyhow, I
Wow.
haven't thrown it away. This was the barracks bag you had.
Yes, I remember
You
that.
remember
I still
this?
have mine.
Dave, maybe back up a little bit so
This,
Gary's gonna run out.
I'm gonna be in the parking
Yeah,
lot.
he's gonna be in the parking lot.
this, you had everything you owned in this.
Yep.
And, whatever you owned was in there. I imagine, well, we got these swords with the Nazi insignia. At 87, you can pull a beautiful Soligan steel. There's all those various types. We had, these were wonderful little Yank magazines that came out, I forget, weekly, I guess. Had jokes on the back, and usually a picture.
For morale.
Well, it brought your morale up, yeah. This one was Ida Lupino.
Hey, Lupino.
And anyhow, we, did I mention who, seen Bob Hope? Came
Oh, I
over?
meant to ask you about the troop entertainments, whether you ever saw any of those.
Yeah, Bob Hope, and then in France, Marlene Dietrich.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't expect her to, and Bing Crosby, Mickey Rooney. I was in the Jeep in the front seat, and taking him to where he was going to entertain. He says, "Get in the back." Anyhow, so I got him back. But they entertained. Bob Hope was in England, and Bing Crosby and Marlene Dietrich and Mickey Rooney were in Germany. And they were very close in the front line area, so you really gave them credit. And this was the post office one for you. And that. This is the 20th Corps item, or Third Army too, and pictures of headquarters, people, and
Maybe you could hold that, help him hold that out, okay?
snappy little thing.
And are you in that one?
Yeah,
Where are you?
that's a question. We were, I
That's
believe.
when you're third from the left, right by your thumb, I think. Third or fourth from the left.
Yeah, oh, right there.
Yeah. Let me zoom in on that, okay?
It's the good-looking
A
guy.
good-looking guy. I agree.
You were a little heavier then.
Well, I went up into the 182 mark when we sat in Metz, where we didn't move, and all the rations caught up to us. So we ate rather well. Yeah, Yank magazine, and Time magazine with D-Day. That's, so we had all that, and in Britain, got 2 passes. One went to London, and I thought Piccadilly Circus was a circus. Found out it's a
Piccadilly Circle.
circle.
Yeah.
And we were there, and they had these balloons up in the air to keep the planes from, German planes from coming down and strafing or coming low. But there was a lot of bombing, so I was in a nice hotel room, and I thought, do I want to go down in the basement? I'm in the best bed I have been in for a long time. So I stayed there while they were banging around. I had gone there with my good buddy, Paul Roderick, who was a B-17 pilot. He had visited me in my camp area. About a week later, we're in a review, all the guys up on the deal. This B-17 came by over us at a very low, I mean, right across. It was my buddy. He told me he was going to do that. He got reprimanded, and our major, our colonel, he probably contacted somebody and said, who in the cripe was this? Why was this plane? They got his number. And my buddy was called in and said, no, don't do this no more. But that was it. He didn't go any further with the reprimand, and so that was good. But many things like that kept you have a little fun with it being where you were. So yeah, a lot of things. We had the Signal Corps, 69th Signal Corps reunion for 50 years, each year at a different location. Many pictures are here, and the locations, which meant we took kids on vacation to these reunions, and just family time, had a good time. So you could, I had wrote up a whole big thing, you know, but we've covered many of the things real well. And I guess with anything like this, you could go on and on.
Oh, sure. If you don't mind, did you want to get a copy of what he wrote up?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
We can get a copy of what you wrote up. That would be nice to add to.
And some of the pictures, let me see if I can put them on the copier and
Okay.
get some copies of them.
Would you like to introduce your daughter and granddaughter?
Yeah. Well,
Come on in.
Has your granddaughter, have you heard about his,
Yeah,
you've been to,
I've heard a lot of information, and we actually did a grandparents book, and so a lot of that history information was in it.
A lovely
Now,
family.
now, were there any stories that he ever told you that he didn't tell us today? Something that you remember?
That, one of the things is that they decided to get married before he would be shipped out, and they were 19,
Wow.
very young,
Mm-hmm.
and the hardships of being apart.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you can't explain.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
And
sure.
he kind of sugarcoated a lot. That's not the right word, but it was years before he showed us the camp pictures and talked about the war.
I think probably 100% of the veterans that we've had in, that's the same thing.
some of which the first time they've talked about it is
Yeah.
when they came in for the interview.
I think the other thing that should be noted is that World War II veterans were 1,000% committed to the freedom of the United States of America.
They were. Absolutely they were.
And freedom is very important to them at 87.
87.
Who's counting?
We already discussed how old I am.
Yeah, that's the best thing, is good children and grandchildren and everybody.
Having them stand there next to you makes what you went through all worth it, doesn't it?
Sure does.
This is the product of
Yep.
what you were there for.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
It would have made it easier at the time if you had known that this was going to happen. You didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out then, but it
Well,
would. But
We were most fortunate that we didn't have children in the months we were married. That would have been rough on the wife
yeah,
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 to
Yeah.
be here with raising a child and so forth.
yeah.
So nice of you to come and you to come, and the other kids will be able to view and
You betcha.
so forth. So
That's right.
appreciate your efforts of what you're doing.
That's right. And this will go down to the Library of Congress. It'll be on permanent, part of their permanent collection.
Mhm.
And they'll put it up online so you can go. I have a business card you can go up and look at some of the other stories online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That would be really nice.
yeah, good.
So,
And I think the love that couples had with World War II is very unique, very special too.
Yeah,
yeah, some didn't work out too.
yeah,
They
Yeah,
were
yeah.
just faithful and so forth and changed their minds and whatnot, so, you know,
Yeah.
that was a hard deal to do.
you know, those were the times though, you know, the war and couples falling in love very young and then being forced to make a decision, sometimes premature perhaps,
Yeah,
and it seemed to have worked out very well for you to be
Yeah.
able to do what you did early and then wait and start your family after you were home. I'm sure that was.
Not long after.
Are you still there?
Bye.
Yeah, I'm,